rejected mail-order bride wept at the station, until a little girl whispered, "My papa's waiting for you." The train screeched to a halt in a cloud of steam, the iron wheels grinding against the rails with a noise that made heads turn. Dust rose in little whirlwinds as passengers shuffled off onto the wooden platform of Clearwater Station, a small frontier town tucked against rolling hills and endless prairie. Among them stepped a woman whose heart had been beating faster than the train all morning. Her name was Clara May Hensley, 30 years of age, from a small textile town back east. She carried a carpetbag in one hand and her dreams in the other. She wasn't a young bride, nor a slender one. Life, poverty, and disappointment had settled on her shoulders and hips. The years of working in a mill, eating what she could afford, and being told she was too plain or too big for marriage had carved doubt into her soul. And yet she had believed. She had answered a letter, a mail-order bride advertisement from a rancher in the West, a man who claimed he needed a wife to share his home and his heart. His words had been tender, if brief. He wrote that he was lonely, that he wanted a woman of good character, someone who could cook, keep a home, and care for children someday. Clara had clutched those letters every night, reading them until she knew the ink by heart. For the first time in her life, she thought maybe someone wanted her, not despite who she was, but because of who she was. Her thick fingers tightened around her bag's handle as she scanned the platform, cheeks flushed, heart racing. She imagined him there, tall, sun-worn, a man with a strong jaw and softer eyes. Perhaps he'd tip his hat, take her hand, and say, "Welcome home, Clara." But instead, she saw him, a man in a clean but dusty coat, broad-shouldered, standing stiff by the telegraph post. He matched the description in his letter: dark hair, gray eyes, a scar just above the chin. Her heart leapt. With trembling steps, she walked toward him. "Mr. Dillard?" she asked softly, voice uncertain. His gaze moved over her, slow, heavy, sharp. From her round face to her stout figure, her dress that stretched at the seams, her worn shoes polished for this occasion. His lips pressed together, and she knew before he spoke. "You're her." His tone was flat, almost accusing. Clara's cheeks burned. "Yes, sir. Clara May Hensley. From—" "I don't think so." He shook his head, cold eyes narrowing. "You didn't say in your letters you was like this." Her heart dropped to her boots. "Like what?" He didn't bother to answer. He just stepped back, shaking his head again as if she had tricked him, as if her very existence was deceit. "I needed a wife who could work the ranch, not someone who looks like they can barely keep up a walk. Sorry, Mississippi. This won't do." The platform tilted beneath her feet. She clutched her carpetbag like it might keep her upright. "But, sir, we wrote letters. You said—" "I said I wanted someone who could stand beside me. No offense, but this ain't it." He turned his back, muttered something under his breath, and walked away into the crowd. Clara stood there, staring after him, throat tight, eyes burning. She wanted to run after him, to plead, to remind him of his own words, but her pride froze her in place. She was not going to beg a man who looked at her like that. The laughter of two young women nearby, pretty, slim, with parasols, felt like daggers in her back. She heard one whisper, "Poor thing," and another giggle, "Imagine coming all this way." Her shoulders hunched. She dropped onto a bench, the wood rough under her skirt. Her carpetbag rested against her boots. Tears blurred the world until the station became a smear of colors. She had gambled everything, her savings, her hope, her dignity, on this chance. And now she was alone. Again. The minutes dragged. People bustled past, the station echoing with whistles, footsteps, laughter. Clara bowed her head, unable to stop the tears that slipped down her cheeks. She tried to wipe them away discreetly, but her body betrayed her with quiet sobs. And then a small hand touched hers. Clara startled and looked down. A little girl stood beside her, no more than 7 years old. She had braids the color of autumn wheat, big curious eyes the shade of clear sky, and a patched dress with a ribbon tied crookedly at the waist. In her tiny fist she held a ragged doll. The child looked at her with the kind of innocence that stripped away pretense. "Don't cry," the little girl said softly. Clara blinked, surprised, and quickly tried to hide her wet cheeks. I'm all right, sweetheart. Just a little tired from traveling." The girl shook her head as though she knew better. Then she leaned closer, her small voice a whisper meant only for Clara. "My papa's waiting for you." Clara froze. "Your papa?" The girl nodded earnestly. "He didn't come to the station, but I did. He needs somebody. And I think it's you." Confusion and a flicker of hope warred inside Clara. She studied the child, wondering if this was some cruel joke. But there was no mockery in those wide eyes, only trust, as if she truly believed her words. Before Clara could speak again, the girl slipped her little hand into hers and tugged gently. "Come on," she said. "I'll take you to him." Clara hesitated, torn between caution and the aching emptiness in her chest. The rejection still stung like a fresh wound. But the warmth of that small hand was impossible to resist. It was the first kindness anyone had shown her since she stepped off the train. And so, with her carpet-bag clutched in her other hand, Clara let the little girl lead her down the steps of Clearwater Station, toward a fate she hadn't expected and a man she had never written to. "My papa's waiting for you." The girl's hand was small, but her grip was firm, tugging Clara down the dusty street that stretched away from the station. Clara stumbled to keep up, her carpet-bag thumping against her side. Every few steps she tried to speak, to ask where they were going, who her father was, what this meant, but each time the little girl looked back with such certainty, Clara found her protests fading on her lips. "I don't even know your name," Clara finally said, a little breathless. The girl beamed. "I'm Ellie." "Ellie," Clara repeated softly. The name suited her, bright, simple, like a bell in springtime. Ellie marched forward, doll tucked under her arm, ribbons bouncing with each step. The streets of Clearwater bustled around them, horses stamping, wagons creaking, the blacksmith's hammer ringing like a heartbeat. Clara felt eyes on her, whispers trailing behind like smoke. She imagined the story already spreading, the mail-order bride who had been turned away. Her cheeks burned. She kept her gaze low, focusing only on the little girl who tugged her onward. The ranch house. The town gave way to open fields, rolling hills patched with scrub and wildflowers. In the distance, Clara saw a modest ranch house, whitewashed boards weathered by sun and wind, smoke curling from a stone chimney. A barn sagged slightly at one side, and a handful of cows grazed lazily in the pasture. Ellie pointed ahead. "That's home." Clara slowed, unease prickling. "Ellie, darling, I think there's been some mistake. Your papa, he doesn't know me." "Yes, he does." Ellie's tone was firm, almost scolding. "I wrote the letter." Clara stopped dead in her tracks. "You, what?" Ellie turned, braids swinging. "Papa didn't. He never would. He's too sad. So I wrote it. I told him I was practicing my letters, and I sent it. I said we needed someone who could be kind. Someone who could stay." She looked up at Clara with wide, earnest eyes. "That's you." Clara's heart lurched. The truth settled over her like a heavy quilt. The rancher who had rejected her wasn't Henry Dillard at all. Ellie's papa had never even written. "Oh, child," Clara whispered, sinking to her knees so they were eye to eye. "You shouldn't have done that. Your papa might be very cross with me for showing up." Ellie shook her head with the stubborn faith only children possessed. "He won't. He'll see. He needs you." Before Clara could argue further, the ranch house door creaked open. Meeting the rancher. A man stepped onto the porch, tall and broad-shouldered, his shirt sleeves rolled to the elbow, sweat glistening at his temples. His hair was dark, though sun had streaked it with copper, and his jaw bore a shadow of stubble. His eyes, when they found Clara, were steady, wary, and deep brown, like soil rich with secrets. "Ellie." His voice was low, edged with fatigue. "Who's this?" Ellie bounded forward, dragging Clara's hand. "Papa. This is Miss Clara. She came for us." The man's brow furrowed. His gaze shifted to Clara, lingering on her flushed cheeks, her travel-worn dress, the carpet-bag clutched like a shield. "Came for us," he repeated slowly. Clara's tongue felt thick. She rose, dusting off her skirt. Sir, I think there's been some misunderstanding. I was answering an advertisement, but it seems your daughter, she faltered, glancing at Ellie, whose hopeful eyes pleaded with her not to betray the truth so bluntly. Clara softened her tone. Wrote to me herself. The man's jaw tightened. Ellie. The girl shuffled her feet, chin lifting stubbornly. We need her, Papa. He closed his eyes briefly, pinching the bridge of his nose. When he looked again at Clara, his gaze was guarded, measuring. Name's Samuel Carter. This here's my ranch. I don't know what my daughters told you, but I didn't send for a bride. Clara swallowed hard, shame threatening to choke her. I understand, Mr. Carter. And I'm sorry. I didn't know until just now. I can go. No. Ellie's cry was sharp, desperate. She flung her arms around Clara's skirts. Don't leave. Samuel's expression wavered, torn between frustration and something softer he tried to hide. He exhaled slowly, glancing toward the house. You look like you've had a long trip, he said gruffly. No sense turning you out straight away. Supper's near ready. You can sit a spell, rest your feet. Clara blinked. It wasn't an invitation, not really, but it wasn't rejection either. She nodded, her voice quiet. Thank you, Mr. Carter. At the table. Inside, the ranch house was simple but tidy. The scent of stew drifted from the hearth, mingling with the warm glow of lamplight. Clara set her carpetbag by the door, unsure where to put her hands. Samuel moved with quiet efficiency, setting bowls, slicing bread, stirring the pot. His shoulders were broad beneath his worn shirt, movements practiced, deliberate. He spoke little, his silences thick but not unkind. Ellie chattered in the meantime, filling every pause with questions. Miss Clara, do you like dolls? Do you know how to make pie? Can you braid hair? Do you sing hymns? Papa says I sing too loud, but he's wrong. Do you? Ellie, Samuel said gently, let the lady breathe. Clara smiled, despite herself. I don't mind. She reminds me of my brothers when they were small. Always full of questions. At the table, they bowed their heads. Samuel's prayer was simple. Gratitude for food, for work, for strength. Clara's hands tingled where his rough palm brushed hers, brief but steady. The stew was hearty, the bread warm. Clara ate slowly, nerves still knotted in her stomach, but each bite seemed to ease the ache of rejection that lingered from earlier. Bonds forming. After supper, Clara insisted on helping with dishes. Samuel resisted at first, but she was firm. I came all this way to be useful, Mr. Carter. At least let me wash a plate. His lips twitched, almost a smile. He relented. Side by side at the basin, silence stretched, broken only by the splash of water. At last Samuel spoke. You said you came on account of an advertisement? Clara nodded. Yes. I thought someone wanted me. But it seems the letter was never yours. Samuel glanced at Ellie, who was humming to her doll in the next room. His eyes softened. She misses her ma. Been gone 2 winters now. Ellie's got it in her head she can fix what's broken. I'm sorry for your loss, Clara murmured. He nodded once, jaw tight. It's been hard. For both of us. Clara wanted to say more, to offer comfort, but the weight in his voice warned her not to pry. She dried the last dish and folded the cloth carefully. Evening reflections. That night, Samuel showed her to the spare room, a modest space with a narrow bed, quilt neatly folded. You can stay the night, he said. Tomorrow we'll figure what's next. Clara clasped her hands. Thank you. You've been very kind. He met her eyes briefly, something unreadable flickering there. Kind's not the word most used for me. Before she could respond, he tipped his hat and left her to the quiet. Clara sat on the edge of the bed, heart heavy yet strangely light. She had been rejected once today, and yet here she was, in a warm home, with a little girl who had clung to her hand as though she belonged. Perhaps she didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But for the first time since stepping off the train, she felt less alone. The days ahead. In the following days, Clara found herself slipping naturally into the rhythm of ranch life. She mended Ellie's dresses, baked biscuits that filled the kitchen with buttery warmth, and sang hymns as she hung laundry to dry. Ellie followed her everywhere, laughing more than Clara suspected she had in months. Samuel watched quietly, often from a distance. He said little, but his eyes lingered longer each day, on the steadiness of Clara's hands, on the gentleness with which she braided Ellie's hair, on the strength that shone through the softness others had mocked. The wound of rejection at the station still ached, But slowly, Clara began to see it differently. Perhaps Mr. Dillard had not wanted her. But maybe, just maybe, this little girl had been right all along. Maybe her true place was here. With them.